They hadn't spoken honestly for many years. There was no big argument, no explosive moment, no door slammed in anger. Just a slow, almost imperceptible drift. The kind that happens when you stop saying what you mean and start saying what's safe. Year after year. Conversation after shallow conversation. Until the silence between the words became louder than the words themselves. And then, with only a few days left, there was no more time to avoid the truth. His name was Paul. My name is Hannah. I was already working as a nurse when I met them. Elizabeth had been on the ward for several months. Room 14, third floor. The one with the window facing the old oak tree. She was 76. A retired nurse herself, which meant she knew exactly what was happening. She recognized the signs. She had seen them in other people for decades. Her body was getting weaker. You could see it in the way she moved, slower each day, more deliberate, as if every gesture required permission from her failing heart. But her mind was still very clear. Paul came every day, usually around 3 in the afternoon. Sometimes earlier, never later. He was 52, a civil engineer, divorced, one adult daughter he saw on holidays and birthdays. A man who had built his life carefully, roads, structures, things that hold. But somewhere along the way, the conversations with his mother had stopped holding anything real. He would stand near the door for a moment, as if gathering the courage to step inside. Then he would enter, quietly, carefully. Sometimes he brought flowers, yellow tulips, because she had once mentioned liking them in a conversation 20 years ago that he still remembered. Sometimes he brought newspapers she could no longer read. He would sit in the chair beside the bed. The green one? The one with the worn armrest where countless other visitors had rested their hands and said their difficult goodbyes. And he would talk about the weather, about traffic, about a colleague at work who told a funny story. Safe things, easy things, things that required no vulnerability. I don't think he knew why he really came. Or maybe he did know, and that's exactly why he kept the conversations shallow. There was a lot between them that had never been spoken. Old wounds. Disappointments that had calcified over decades. Expectations that were never met. Apologies that were never offered. You could feel it the moment you entered the room. Not through words, through silence. With each passing day, her condition worsened. She needed more oxygen, more medication, more of the kind of care that reminds you how fragile we all are. But she also needed something else, something no machine could provide. Presence. One afternoon, when it was unusually quiet on the ward, Elizabeth asked me to stay. Not for medical reasons, just to stay. Paul was sitting in his usual chair, hands folded in his lap, staring at a spot on the floor he'd probably memorized by now. He looked tired. Not the kind of tired that comes from lack of sleep. The kind that comes from carrying something heavy for too long. Elizabeth looked at him. For a long time. The way mothers do when they're trying to memorize a face they won't see much longer. And then she spoke. Her voice was weak. But every word was deliberate. "Paul," she said, "I was not always the mother you needed me to be." The room became very still. Even the machines seemed quieter. Paul didn't answer right away. His mouth opened slightly as if to speak, but nothing came. And then his face crumpled. He was crying. Silently. The kind of crying that comes from a place you didn't know you still had access to. I wanted to leave, to give them privacy, but Elizabeth held me there with a look that said, "Please, bear witness. Because this wasn't just their moment. It was a moment for anyone who has ever waited too long to say what matters. After what felt like a long time, though, it might have been only seconds, Paul finally spoke. "I thought I still had time," he said. "Time to talk. Time to fix things. Time to forgive you. Time for you to forgive me." His voice broke. "Time to say what I never said. Time to hear what you never said. Time to be honest about everything we pretended didn't matter." Then he said something I will never forget. "I didn't know that time would decide for us." Elizabeth reached for his hand. Slowly, her fingers trembling slightly from the effort. But when she took his hand, her grip was firm. Steady. And then she said something that changed the entire room. "Love does not disappear," she said, "just because words were missing." In that moment, something shifted. The years of distance, all those unspoken resentments, all those avoided conversations, they didn't disappear. But they lost their power. Not everything was resolved. There was no sudden miracle, no Hollywood ending. But something essential happened. They stopped pretending. They stopped hiding behind small talk and weather reports and stories about colleagues. They were finally present. Together. Not as the people they wished they had been, but as the people they actually were. Maybe there's someone in your life you haven't really talked to in a long time. Someone you love, or used to love, or still love in a complicated way. Maybe you tell yourself it's not the right time. They're not ready. I'm not ready. We'll talk. Eventually. Someday. But someday has no date on the calendar. And eventually is just another word for never. So here is a gentle invitation. Not a demand. Not a guilt trip. Just an invitation. Think of one person. Just one. Someone you care about. Someone the relationship matters with, even if it's been difficult. Even if it's been years. And write down, just for yourself, what you would say if you knew you only had one more conversation. You don't have to send it. You don't have to show it to anyone. You don't even have to keep it. But writing it down makes it real. It pulls it out of the fog of someday and puts it in front of you. It reminds you that connection isn't something to postpone. Not because life is short, though it is, but because the people we love deserve to know while there's still time to hear it. Paul stayed until the very last moment. He didn't leave her side. He held her hand the way she had held his when he was small, and the world felt too big. When Elizabeth died, there were no unspoken words left in that room. No regrets about what wasn't said. No haunting silence. Just stillness and presence. Some conversations are meant to happen before it's too late.